Welcome to Lifestyle Solopreneur, the community for entrepreneurs who put lifestyle first. Join your host, Flavia Barris, as she interviews successful lifestyle solopreneurs and shares ideas to help you find the perfect balance between lifestyle, business, and self. Flavia is an attorney, marketing expert, and founder of several online academies. She's been featured in major media, including BBC World News, The Wall Street Journal, The New York Post, ESPN Television, and more. Join us for this episode of Lifestyle Solopreneur. Hey, Lifestyle Solopreneurs. Today we get to speak with Liz Steblay. She isn't small, green, or hundreds of years old like certain movie characters we know, but she has been a wise mentor to thousands of self-employed professionals, helping them realize their dreams of becoming solo entrepreneurs. With decades of experience building her own solopreneur career, including founding a national talent agency that made the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing private companies in the US twice, Liz has distilled the formula for solopreneur success down to 6 essential keys. She's the best-selling author of Succeeding as a Solopreneur, which was published in partnership with Inc. magazine in March. Liz is explaining to us how these keys are crucial for overcoming FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and paving the way for long-term success. Welcome to the show, Liz.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Super happy to have you here. Can't wait to hear more about this FUD and how to overcome it or how to conquer it. But before we get to that, I just want to hear a little bit about how you got to what you're doing today, because I know you weren't always the person you are today. Hopefully none of us are the person that we were a decade ago. I hope we're all growing and changing and better every day. So give me a little bit of your backstory.
Yeah, I was never one of those people that climbed the corporate ladder. Mine looks more like a zigzag where I was jumping from one job to another job. And in retrospect, it was like turning over the puzzle pieces and now, looking back, I can see how they've all come together to create this beautiful picture of what's turned out to be my career. Let's just do the very short version. I fell into self-employment or being a solopreneur back in 2004, 20 years ago, when I got laid off from my job at a Fortune 500 company. In that same day that I got notice that I was going to be laid off, I called a colleague that I had kept in touch with. I had been a consultant earlier in my career for a global company. So I called this guy and I said, "Hey, I just got laid off. Do you need any help?" And he said, "Are you kidding? How soon can you get here?" So when I say I fell into self-employment, I really did. I had my first client before I even had a laptop. That same year, I made more money, worked fewer hours, didn't have to deal with big firm BS, had more quality time with my kid, and lowered my effective tax rate. And I said, "That's it. I'm never going back to a traditional full-time job." So that was 20 years ago. And 5 years into that, I started my first business, not being a solopreneur, but my first actual business, which is called the Proco Agency, which represents self-employed consultants who specialize in organizational effectiveness and HR-related things with Fortune 500 companies. And that's the business that's grown to make the Inc. 5000 list a couple of times. But as a result of growing that into a multi-million-dollar business, I got the reputation as the person to call if you have questions about being self-employed. So I was getting asked out to coffee a lot, a couple times a week. And people were asking me the same questions. And finally, I realized, okay, there's got to be a better way to help more people than just drinking a lot of coffee. So that's when I started blogging. My blog is called successfulindependentconsulting.com. And that turned into an educational organization and community called the Professional Independent Consultants of America, which is 17 syllables, way too many. We call it PICA for short. And then as a result of mentoring thousands of people through PICA and leading workshops and webinars and roundtable discussions and generating more content tools and templates, I realized, I've probably got enough material for a book. So I did it a little backwards. A lot of people write the book and then go create the workshops and things, but I did it the other way around. So the short version of how I am on your show.
That's amazing. And I love that you wrote a book, because there's a lot of entrepreneurs who should write a book and haven't yet. It's like they're the ones being asked way too much coffee, right? Way too much coffee in the system, because they're always going out with people. They have some kind of expertise that others seek out. And so, what's the best way to mentor someone? It's probably to meet them one on one. And so, if for anyone listening, if you find yourself like Liz, just being asked to go to lunch, people are asking to pick your brain, taking you to coffee, and it's just happening weekly, you probably have a book in you, especially if there's a ton of overlap in what you say from person to person. So, tell us about your book writing journey, because I think getting from knowing you should have a book to having a published book, that takes many different paths for different authors. What was your path?
It does take many different paths. And I'm the first to say I hate to write. I really hate it. I've had this blog now for, I don't know, 8 years, successfulindependentconsulting.com. And by the end of every month, I'm on the hook to publish this month's blog. In fact, this recording is on the last day of the month. And that's what I have to do after this is publish that blog. But I hate to write. Some ways to make it easier are to keep honor your commitment. So I started my commitment with writing the blog. I said, I'm going to publish a blog, one blog once every 2 weeks. Well, the second month into it, I realized that was too ambitious because it takes about 10 hours to write and publish a blog post, for me anyway. Then I backed off to once a week. So that was a good way to just having that discipline to start churning out content to whatever struck my fancy for that particular month. It wasn't laid out in advance that I was going to write these 60 blogs in this order. It was very organic. But when it came to actually writing the book, I knew I would never get it done if I did it on my own. So I hired a ghostwriter. Now, we could have a whole podcast just on how to find the right ghostwriter, but it takes a
Sure,
lot of
we could.
conversation. Yes, it takes conversations, it takes interviews. You have to look at their sample materials. You have to determine how much you're going to spend on this ghostwriter. But it would never have gotten done if I hadn't hired somebody to take all of the content that I've generated over the years, from the blogs to the workshop transcripts to my webinar notes. I have way too much content. But the one thing that the ghostwriter did, in addition to making all that into prose, was interviewing me to really pull out the stories and the lessons learned. And that's what creates the color commentary in the book and makes it easy to read. So I'm a huge fan, obviously, of outsourcing what you don't do well yourself. And for me, that was outsourcing the writing. And then the other critical part was the editing. That was the most painful part, to be honest, because the editor that I used insisted on doing live editing sessions. So the ghostwriters, actually I had two ghostwriters, and I and the editor would be in Zoom calls, and one of us would be reading this manuscript out loud, and then we would wordsmith almost every sentence. It was excruciating. But in the end, everybody has told me, wow, this is really well written. So I think it was worth the pain.
And did that process of book writing and that pain that you're talking about, do you think that sort of changed your other products as well and helped you drill down on what are my philosophies? What are my concepts? What are my frameworks? Because I think that writing a book does help us fine tune and polish who we are and what we teach. Did you find that happen for you?
Yes and no. I've been a solopreneur now for 20 years. I've launched two businesses. So, like I said, the majority of the content was already there, but it did force me to put it into context, to have an outline. So, the book is called Succeeding as a Solopreneur. The subtitle is Six Keys to Taking the Leap, Winning Clients, and Building Wealth. So, I had to take all of my thoughts and lessons learned and distill them into those six keys. And so that was the rigorous thinking part.
I love your story, especially being an author. I like when authors admit that it's not all roses, because other people feel if it's not easy, it must not be meant to be. Like if they don't love writing, why would they write a book? But you got through it. And I love that you picked out a ghostwriter using more diligence than I think most people do for picking a spouse. And
Maybe.
but it worked out. It worked out great. So your framework that you help people overcome is FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Tell us a little bit more about FUD. How did you come up with those words and concepts, and how do you use that in your teaching?
FUD is actually one of the six keys to success, is overcoming FUD. In fact, it's the first key in the book. Be prepared to vanquish FUD. fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I didn't come up with the FUD acronym, but I think I did invent the concept of the FUD monster. Now, the FUD monster is this little creature, invisible creature that sits on your shoulder and nibbles away at your confidence and whispers all that self-doubt into your ear. Who are you to start a business? And what do you know about building a website? Or what do you know about pricing your services or negotiating a contract? Or you must be nuts to think about leaving a full-time salaried job to step out on your own. That's too much risk. You can't do that. So you have a good idea of what the FUD monster does, right? Everybody has a FUD monster.
Unfortunately, yes, I've met the FUD. He's
Everybody
not
has
fun.
yes, everybody has a FUD monster. And when you're on the fence, when you're thinking about becoming self-employed or creating the career of your dreams by having flexibility over your own schedule and doing the work that you really love to do, FUD is larger than life. That's what really holds most people back from taking the leap to being self-employed is that stupid FUD monster. But I'm here to tell you that I've been self-employed for 20 years and that FUD monster still rears its ugly head from time to time, usually every December. So I make my living actually through my other business, through the agency that does the matchmaking with Fortune 500 companies. I'm no longer involved in the day-to-day business activities for Proco, but I still get a salary. That's what you get for founding a business that grows and can sustain itself. Every December, though, I get nervous. I'll be on the phone with our CFO and I'll say, okay, this is horrible. All our contracts are ending at the end of the month. We're not going to be able to make payroll. Our business is going to fall off a cliff. And she
Sky is
always,
falling.
yes, the sky is falling. Every December, I think this. And she's, Liz, the 3 out of 5 of these are going to extend. We've got those other ones in the pipeline. We're negotiating that. So she has to talk me off the ledge every December. So FUD never really fully goes away, but you have to learn how to recognize it, mitigate it, control it, or just shrink it and say, okay, I hear you. Now I'm doing this anyway. Go away. So that's actually the first key in my book is how to overcome and vanquish the FUD monster. I'll give one quick tip here. One of my favorites is what I call name it and tame it. So if you can hear your thoughts or even feel it in your body that you're a little bit nervous or anxious or there's something holding you back, see if you can name it. So let me give you a practical example. I live near Lake Tahoe. So this summer I was out on a hike. I was hiking up and it was a beautiful day, but there were storm clouds to the west. And I thought, I can do this hike, go up and back and whatever, I'll dodge the rain. But I was about 2/3 of the way up the hill into my hike and I stopped. I heard thunder in the distance and I thought, I'm scared. And I stood there and I said, what am I scared of? And I thought, well, I'm not scared of getting wet. And then it hit me that I was scared of dry lightning and a forest fire. And I said, I don't want to be in the position where I'm running for my life and this hike isn't worth it. So I turned around and started back down the trail. And as I was going back down, a Forest Service truck or lookout truck or whatever they're called was going back up the road. And I thought, okay, I wasn't completely unfounded. But the important part is being aware that I named it. And I was like, okay, what's an appropriate reaction to this fear? And then I took the action. So in the case of being a solopreneur, it might be, okay, I'm terrified that I won't be able to make a living being self-employed. So I'm just going to stay in my full-time job. Then the next question will be, what could I learn or what skill can I develop to make me less scared? And that gives you your next step. So that's, for example, one of the keys in my book.
So what's next for you? I love asking entrepreneurs, here's where you are, but what's next on the horizon? Where do you see yourself in 2-3 years?
Flavia, I'll be completely honest and candid with you. After I published the book, okay, so I was self-employed. I launched a business. Then I launched an educational organization. Then I wrote a book. When the book came out last March, I realized I was completely burnt out and fried. I had been grinding for decades and I'd never experienced anything like that. It lasted for months. And I thought, oh, great. So I've done and achieved all these things. And now I don't even have the strength to get out of bed in the morning. I called it low power mode over the summer, where I told everybody that I was in business with that, okay, I'm going to work part-time this summer because I need to do some thinking, some reevaluating. And I did some workshops and things. So what's next for me? Oh, the other candid part is I also celebrated my 60th birthday this year. So the culmination of publishing the book, turning 60, I thought, and being burnout, I thought, okay, what is next for me? And the answer is I'm going to continue to mentor solopreneurs. I don't make any money at it, but I really enjoy it. I can have a 15-minute conversation with somebody and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I was so stuck. And you've given me some really great practical tips. And I know exactly now what I need to do next. That's just so rewarding for me. I was came across a new term recently called joy fuel. So when I'm in a coaching conversation or a mentoring conversation with somebody, that's my joy fuel. That's what fuels my tank and gives me energy, is to be able to help people launch and create and live the career of their dreams. And I know it sounds a little bit cheesy, but I have enough money to retire. And a lot of people say, why don't you just retire? I can't. I really love helping people and I can only play so much golf.
I don't know. Some people will tell you you can never play too much golf, but I'm with you.
My partner would say you can never play too much golf, but I'm not
No,
like
I'm with
him.
you. I'm built from the same fabric and I just love inspiring others and helping, just seeing other people achieve their dreams and goals. It really does. I have that fuel that I need as well. So next for you, there's a lot there. And I love that you really come from a place of service of helping others and you do that through your business. Tell us a little bit more about Pika because I'm very curious and there's probably people listening who want to know if Pika is something they should visit and look at and consider.
Yeah, I think I bit off more than I could chew when we launched Pika about, I don't forget, 6, 8 years ago. Because we had this vision for a national organization that provided education and resources and discounted services and community. And in retrospect, we did some of those things. But now, really, I'm just like tired of pushing that boulder up the hill, trying to break through and have it be as big as I don't ARP. It's a small community. I'm very proud of the people who are members of Pika. So it's an annual membership, and that gives you access to all the tools and templates and on-demand courses and workshops, webinars, mentoring by me, etc. But in order for it to keep it sustainable, it has to be easier to run and it has to operate in the black. So we've cut back on live events. Now we partner with another organization called the Society of Professional Consultants because they do a great job of hosting events. So now when we come across a guest speaker and expert, we say, okay, let me put you in touch with the Society of Professional Consultants so they can host the webinar and then we co-market it. So really what Pika is becoming is more about the mentorship and the access to the tools and templates and tried and true resources that I've used in the last 20 years and that thousands of others have used in the years since Pika has been launched. So I'm saying that now because if people go to the website, which you can reach by going to independentconsulting.org, the calendar isn't what it used to be. We don't have a lot of guest speakers anymore because we're starting to partner with SPC, but it's more about mentoring and access to me. I may be launching another boot camp. For several years, I've run a boot camp 2, 3 times a year. It was over 8 weeks and it involves, I forget how many, 5 cohort sessions and 6 additional workshops. And I'm still trying to figure out if I have the energy, if I've recovered from burnout to host another boot camp. I think what we're going to do is create a sort of like a wait list. And when we get a critical mass, then I'll probably launch another boot camp.
And you're so smart to consider whether you have enough fuel in the tank before committing to doing it, because that's so important. And I think that's how we prevent burnout is from not overcommitting and making sure that we only commit to the things that we have the time and energy, like the true personal energy for. So that's great. You're super generous because you're making a download available for free to our listeners. We always ask guests if you have anything of value that we could offer to our listeners, please let us know. We will put it in our guest vault. So we maintain all of our guests, anything that's a freebie or a download or something that can be very helpful in our podcast guest gift vault. So if you visit podcastguestgift.com, that's where we keep them all. And you're providing a LinkedIn reference guide for solopreneurs, which sounds so valuable. Tell us a little bit about what's in there.
Yes, we just reissued the reference guide, the LinkedIn reference guide. The first one was written about 8 years ago, but LinkedIn has changed a lot. So we just polished it off and refreshed it. So what a lot of people don't understand is there is a distinct difference between a LinkedIn profile of an employee and that of a solopreneur. They look a lot different. As a solopreneur, your LinkedIn profile is your storefront window because LinkedIn is the first place people go to find out more about you. You might have the best blog in the world or the fanciest website or have been doing search engine optimization for years on end. Doesn't matter. If you do a Google search on your own name, your LinkedIn profile is going to be one of the top 3 results, and that's where people go. So you need to create a LinkedIn profile. The reason I call it your storefront window is you need to put your best merchandise in that storefront window to draw people in to want to learn more about you, to draw people into your store, to draw people into a conversation. Nobody hires a solopreneur without a conversation first. So all of your marketing, your LinkedIn profile, your website, it all needs to try to draw people into a conversation so that you can build trust and establish credibility, find out more about what their situation is. Are you really the right person to help them? So it's all about drawing people into your store, and LinkedIn is the number one way to do that.
Your time is valuable. I don't want to keep you here past what we committed to. So to honor that, I just want to know what kind of parting thoughts and encouragement do you have for anyone listening that heard your story and what you've been through and what you've built and is feeling inspired, but wants to think, where do I go next? Where do I go from here to keep that momentum going?
Oh, that's actually a two-part question there, Flavia. So the one thing that I would like people to remember is you're never going to have all the answers. So this kind of ties back to FUD, right? There's always going to be some sort of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But you need to realize you're smart enough to figure out what you don't know. You're smart enough to get the resources that you need or to ask for the help that you need. In terms of what to do next, obviously, if you're interested in a career as a solopreneur, I recommend my book. But the easiest way to find the book is to go to sixkeys.info, not .com, because that URL was too expensive, and I'm all about keeping expenses low. So sixkeys.info, and that's the landing page for the book. And from there, you can buy it from Amazon or the ebook or the audio book or buy a signed copy from me, whatever. And there's also a link to get to Pika, my LinkedIn profile. Anyway, that's the easiest place to go, is sixkeys.info.
And I think your book sounds amazing. So succeeding as a solopreneur, again, at the sixkeys.info. And it's been so nice speaking with you. I always get motivated and inspired, feel refreshed when I speak with someone who's accomplished as much as you have and has come out at the other end with just such a good spirit about it and just being in a good place.
Well, thank you. Yes, it wasn't without a lot of hard work. So anybody who thinks that being self-employed is great because you can work any hours you want, yeah, that's true, but you can work any 70 hours you want.
You've done it right.
There's still hard work involved. There's no doubt about that.
You've found the right balance and now you're mentoring others to do the same. Thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been so great to get to know you.
Thanks, Flavia.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us and I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, and if you leave a review on iTunes, I promise I will read every single review. If you know someone who makes a full-time living from part-time work, and maybe this is you, please visit lifestylesolopreneur.com to nominate a guest or to nominate yourself. Because remember this, money doesn't buy happiness. But money in the hands of a happy person, there is no greater tool.
Today's episode was brought to you by the Get Shift Done program. It's a lifestyle-changing online class to help you define your business and lifestyle ambitions and to set goals in a way you've never experienced before. This class will 10x your daily productivity with methods that will blow your mind. And if you use the coupon code podcast, the class tuition is 99% off. Visit GetShiftDone.com to enroll today.